I started to realize, so I was doing a one-on-one with Todd. This had to have been like 2 or 3 years ago. And so we're doing a one-on-one and, we're just looking at my stats. My stats were like flat as could be. And they were down. They weren't like up. They were flat. And I was still making money. I was still making more money than everybody, but my stats were flat. And I knew that I could be doing more. And there was something wrong. And so I could compare myself to other people and be like, well, I make more money than those guys. And I was, by the way, I was doing that. I was like, yeah, I drive a Jag. I live in the player condo. Everybody in this room would trade their paycheck with my paycheck at any given time. I had that swag, but I also, in real reality, my stats were like this, and they were not going anywhere. And so there was a problem. I didn't feel good about it. Todd knew there was a problem. We decided to break it down and find out what was it. Dude, it was about an hour and 30 minutes. We were sitting, trying to look for everything. What is it? What am I doing? What am I doing? What am I not doing? What, this, that, calls, dials, talk time, this, that. And Todd just goes, what's your weight? And I was like, what? What's my weight? I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I'm like, probably like 183. He's like, are you usually 183? And I'm like, no, I'm up right now. I'm really good when I'm like 174, and he's like, wow. So you're up like 9 or 10 pounds. I'm like, I kind of laughed about it. I'm like, yeah, I'm up a little bit. He's like, well, when did that start? And I was like, I don't know. I really don't know, and he was like, well, dude, when how long has it been? I'm like, maybe a couple months. And he was like, okay, cool. So your graph a couple months ago was going up and then it went down and stopped. And he was like, it happened right here. We were literally looking at the graph. And I was like, yeah, it was probably around that time. But I'm like, dude, like that's not, I'm like, dude, it was 10 pounds. It's like 5% of my body weight. He's like, all right, but like, how do you feel? And I'm like, no, I mean, I run every day. I guess it hurts a little bit more now that I'm a little bit heavier than I was. I want to feel better. He's like, do you want to lose more weight? I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm actually perfect. Dude, I'm really good at 168. That's actually the goal that I write down all the time, that I'm 168. He's like, but you're 183. And I'm like, yeah. So, he's like, okay, good. But like, when did that start? What's happening? And I'm like, he's like, what's your eating routine? And I'm like, I don't know, dude. I just eat the same regular stuff. He's like, well, where's it coming from? And I'm like, dude, I literally Uber Eats every single day. He's like, well, what do you get on Uber Eats? And I'm like, I don't know, dude. I just get my regular stuff. He's like, well, let's look at it. And I'm like, all right. So I go in there. He's flipping through. He sees like a week ago. I had ice cream delivered to my house like a couple nights before that on Uber Eats. I don't know if you guys have ever done that. I've done it. And he's like, well, how often are you eating ice cream? I'm like, well, I don't know, dude. I stock my fridge up. I have it at nighttime. I like it. I happen to approve of ice cream. I think it's probably one of the best tasting things in the entire world. He's like, yeah, but does it work for you? And I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. He's like, well, how long have you been doing this? I'm like, I don't know. He flips through my entire Uber Eats thing, goes all the way back to that same time frame. That same time frame we were looking at on the stats from it was a 4-month cycle. And he goes all the way back. And he looks, and he found the first date that I did that. Very interesting that my statistics started going down when I placed that order. Okay, was it the weight, or was it the ethics going out on myself that caused me to crash my own stats because I knew that I was doing the wrong thing? And it went against my goals. It went against my ethical standard. I don't feel good when I'm overweight. Dude, I'm in front of people every single day. I'm pitching deals. I live in Miami, man. It's like, dude, it's like it's model city down. Everybody's models here. There's people that on South Beach that have 0% body fat. It's not even possible anywhere in the world, but it happens on South Beach. So like I can't even go out there with my shirt off because I feel bad, and I want to because I like that. So here I am crashing my own stats because of my own ethics. And I'll never forget that because what we did was I was like, man, this thing hit me too hard because I was like, dude, that is the problem. And I know it's the problem because we look for everything else and those dates correlate exactly. And so I deleted the app that day. I quit ordering food from there. I figured out a new way to get new food. I made it quick, fast, started getting my ethics in on that. I quit eating the ice cream at nighttime. got the weight down. Literally, I lost I lost that weight pretty quick actually because it wasn't my normal weight. My freaking stats launched. I mean, it was unbelievable. And like, I remember me and Todd were talking about this like a couple weeks later in a meeting, and I was like just blown away. I'm like, dude, I'm not eating that shit ever again in my life. You know, and I'm like, dude, and it just blew my mind that I'm like, dude, if it could be something that small, what else is it? Because I was making the dials, I was making the calls, I was making the talk time, I was pitching the deals, I was doing my training, but I had this one thing over here that like I was doing that I didn't feel good about. And I started paying attention to that stuff a lot. And by the way, I did the calculation on the amount of money that I missed in that deal. And I don't know if you guys, so I invest about 40 to 60% of my income in Cardone Capital. So it basically means that every dollar I put in there will turn into at least $3. So when I do math on numbers, I look at what that investment's going to look like and what it'll look like over time. And so I did the math on the amount of money that I lost from my paycheck going down over the course of 4 months. Yeah, maybe it was like 40 grand or something like that, or maybe it was like 50 or something. But I remember doing the math on it, what that looked like compounded in Cardone Capital over like 30 years. And it was a couple $1 million. And I'm like, that's an expensive mistake, dude. That's over ice cream, bro. Are you kidding me? Oh my God, a couple mil. And I just remember being like, I was so mad. I'm like, I was mad at myself because I knew that was true, that I had totally messed up my own situation because of me doing something that I did not feel good about. If you guys ever go to this program, one of the most underrated programs in the entire system, and if you just understand what it